Well, hi everybody. I live in Singapore, but I'm in London at the moment. So I just want to say hi from London to Cambodia. So my background is psychology and behavior change. My name's Lori, and I've been doing this for about 30 years. And what I'm really passionate about is how do we help all of us in all our jobs? How do we help our companies to create a space where people are learning and improving every day? I work very closely with a capacity specialist, and we've helped quite a few, and we're still working with a few companies in Cambodia. But the work that I do is anywhere in the world. It's mainly in Asia, from Cambodia to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. So anything that I'm speaking about applies to us in Asia. It's not just something for Europe and America. And the topic for today is 3 ways to make learning at work easier. And what I've done over 30 years is I've developed a methodology or an approach that I call Syzygy. And you'll understand what I mean by Syzygy in a moment. So I'm just going to go through the slides, and then in between, if you have any questions, I will stop every now and again for questions and to answer the questions. So I think the big message for all of us in the learning function and in HR is that our role in learning and development is changing. And the big message, I really want everyone to, and I'd love to see if you agree or disagree, but the future is not going to be about training where we teach individuals and we really focus only on knowledge and skills and we work mostly in the classroom. The future of learning is more about how do we create a culture where there's ongoing performance improvement. And the big theme everywhere in the world, and especially in Asia, where we have very young audiences, and there's a big growing population that needs to be upskilled, the big message is that ongoing performance improvement means that in our role in L&D, we really need to be able to empower people, and we need to work more with teams and not just individuals. And the idea is, how do we help people to learn and improve their performance every day and anywhere, whether they're at work, in the classroom, online. So from a learner, what we're hearing is, and many companies have done research to find out that the audience, the learners are saying, don't teach me, but help us as a group, help us all to learn. So our role is very important. Jack Walsh was a very famous guy. It's a very big company called GE. So his big message was that an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action is the ultimate competitive advantage. So more and more what I'm seeing everywhere in the world is that the learning function is becoming even more strategic and more of a business partner to the leaders. So I think that's the big opportunity for all of us to make sure that what we do is really helping the organization learn and that it's helping the business. So very simply, I'm going to keep coming back to Syzygy because the main thing is really around alignment. So Syzygy's approach to how do we create organization learning so that it actually impacts performance. It really makes a difference to people so that they're learning, adapting, improving their performance every day, and that making sure that it's aligned to the company's purpose. So you're going to hear that as a theme, and that's the underlying philosophy of Syzygy. So whether it's me working and TCS, the capacity specialist working with you, or you working with your business, you need to start thinking more and more about how do you create a learning framework? How do you make sure that there's a framework for learning and that you're giving the tools to the learners and to the teams and to the business for learning, and that you providing knowledge transfer, you building their skills so that more and more every day they're able to manage their own learning. And how do we do that? So this is a framework that you will see I'll be coming back to all the time, which is when we looked at high-performing teams, so teams that are really successful on an ongoing basis, what we found that all these 5 things are always in place. So we learned from them, and what we found was that we can copy what high-performing teams do. We can actually make sure that our role is to put these 5 enablers in place so that within any organization that we work with, that our people are learning and improving, and that we're impacting performance. So the 5 Ps are, we always think about who are the people that should be part of our learning framework. So make sure that we don't only have the target audience, but we have also their managers, the mentors, a bigger ecosystem. And I'll come back to the detail afterwards. We also need to be sure there's a clear purpose, there's a process. What are the platforms? Are we using classroom, digital workspaces? And also, what are our guiding principles? Is the learning being engaging? Is it interactive? So when all these 5 things work together, when we design learning, then we impact performance. So I'll come back to, I'll focus on the first 3. So for you to take something away today, because all these are big, big words and a big picture, but to take something away today is, let's only look at these 3 things. So to make learning easier, what is your role? So the first thing you can do is, let's say you're working with a team. So I'm going to use, there's quite a famous restaurant group called Nando's, and they're all over the world, and they're expanding. So it's a restaurant, so just to use that as a case study. So the first thing we need to make sure was that everybody in the team, from the CEO right at the back of this chain, all the way down to the supervisors and to the front line, to the cashier, to the hostess, that everybody was involved in the learning in order to improve the customer experience. So we couldn't just work with the leadership or only with the front line. We really needed to be sure that we got everybody involved, that if we wanted to create a better customer experience, those are the people that we need to get involved. So the first question you have to ask yourself, and I'll go into more detail, is who are the people that you should get involved in your learning solution? The next question is, what is the purpose? And again, I'll go into more detail in a moment, and this is a visual that can help you even after this webinar and to guide you. The third part is, once you've got the people, you know what the purpose is, then only then you start mapping out the learning journey. What is the process? And we'll talk about these 3 E's, the 3 ways that we learn. So I'll come back to each one of these in detail. So let's begin with people. So you just take a moment and think about, what is your belief about people? Because that will also affect the way you design learning. So we've got a very specific way at Syzygy. The way we think about people, in a way, is we're shifting from the old way of thinking that, like we used to do at school, that people don't know anything and that we have to teach them everything. Whereas on the new island, the truth is that all of us, every single one of us, has a natural capacity to learn. We all are able to learn. That's something that is natural in all of us. We also all have some innate wisdom. In other words, we've all learned something along the way. You never begin with a class or a group of people that know nothing. Let's talk about customer experience. All of them have been customers themselves, so they have an idea of what a good customer experience looks like before they even begin the training. And the third thing that we believe about people is that people are motivated when you create a common purpose. So that's part of what you're going to see, that we're going to keep working with people in a way that we believe they do and they can learn, and we're going to create a purpose to help them so that they learn in a meaningful way. So the next point about people is that, as Steve Jobs said, great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. And that's especially true now, where learning and working is social. It's not just because of the millennials or because the internet. The fact is, of course, we can be successful on our own, but when we learn and we achieve things together with other people, we actually find that we get greater results and we get more satisfaction. So, so back to the point of, one way to improve learning is to form a learning team. And that can be just inviting people together whether they're remote or whether they're physically together in the same place, but start engaging and talking to all the people in the ecosystem. So for example, if we take, we're trying to improve the customer experience, whether it's in a restaurant or whether it's in a shop or whether it's on a help desk or whether it's in a bank. Let's just take that customer experience. So the first thing we need to do is take the group in a branch of a bank or at a restaurant or at a shop, and let's make sure that that group of people see themselves as a learning team and start getting them together to realize that it's everyone that's important, whether it's the cashier, whether it's the supervisor, whether it's their manager. Everybody's important to be part of the learning team. So that's the first thing, is you get all the right people together, and where possible, you can even get from the CEO, the leadership, the management, to the frontline and the supervisors. So for example, with the restaurant example that we had everybody involved in the learning, so that everyone had a learning journey. Of course, the time of the learning, there was more time for the frontline and the supervisors, but we still got the CEO involved to come in, once a month, once every 2 or 3 weeks, we would get the CEO involved and have them part of the journey. So this is all part of, before you even begin, you need to be clear. And here's a very simple worksheet and the instructions, which says, first, decide on the area that you're aiming to improve. So for example, this is the customer experience we want to improve. Then you want to be clear that who's the audience, for example, the frontline, they're the main ones that you want to influence and that are important for success. But then, as the examples I've given, who are the other people that you need to involve that are critical? So it's their supervisors, the CEO, it could be the product specialists, everyone else that you need to be part of this journey. And then be sure that you invite them and get them to feel important and part of this learning team. So that's the very first concrete activity that you can do. And this is just the beginning of the design journey. So if I move on, once you know who are the people that you need to get involved, you need to think about the purpose. And there's a very famous book by Daniel Pink, and he talks about the surprising truth about what motivates us. And in this book, he has a very simple message. So these are the messages from the book, which is, we all think that external rewards, like being paid fairly, they are not motivators. What they do is they avoid dissatisfaction. So they avoid people being disappointed, but they're not really motivating people. They just keep people basically not dissatisfied. However, the most powerful motivator is internal, is when a group of people have a common purpose. So I'm sure you've noticed when you go into a restaurant or you go into a hotel, when you feel the whole group is working together, the whole team of staff are very collaborative and they're all helping each other, you can feel they have a common purpose to create a great experience. And that's actually an internal reward, and that's the most critical motivator for success. So if we use that principle of humanity, what we found is that high performers, they learn, they adapt, and they improve every day in real life because they have a clear purpose. And in fact, as designers, that's our job. If we're designing learning, the first thing we need to do is understand who the people and what is the purpose. And we always begin with this end in mind, so that we ensure that the learning is designed to predefine, to define this upfront, and then we make sure that the whole learning experience is targeted to create some common and meaningful purpose. And the first thing we do is we look at the organizational purpose. So for example, increasing compliments, reducing complaints. So that's the company's purpose. However, I have many people argue with me, but you can also find the audience's purpose. In other words, a lot of the people, for example, that work at a restaurant, when you really get to know them and you really get to understand, they also get very excited about compliments. They really enjoy it when customers come back and either email or on social media, or they keep coming back and and keep being repeat customers. So in fact, it's really important to even engage your individuals and the team to understand what is meaningful to them and what is it that is aligned for them in terms of a purpose. So for example, at Nando's, the example I keep using, the CEO and the leadership's purpose, and from an organization point of view, was increase compliments, decrease complaints. However, when we spoke to the team, they also found that when the customers are happy, their day is so much easier. When customers are happy, they get less stressed. When customers are happy, the whole day seems to go more quickly and their job's more fun. So we even found that we could find a common purpose between the team and the company. So when teams feel valued and you can really discover what is important to them, people, your audience, you'll see, will become just the fact that you're asking them and that you're trying to find a way to weave that into your design. They will appreciate that. So even the CEO, Howard Schultz of Starbucks, he says, people want to be part of something larger than themselves. They want to be part of something they're really proud of, that they'll fight for, sacrifice for, that they trust. So for example, Starbucks created the whole concept of baristas. So they created specialist people, and that made people feel proud that they were just making coffee, but it just gave them a purpose that they were someone special in a Starbucks, that they actually were a barista and they had a special skill. So this is the tool. So if we keep talking about purpose, we just want to give you a way to define a purpose, and I will definitely give you some examples in a moment. So this visual, so it's using, I don't know if you've heard of NLP, but neuro-linguistic programming, which just means that when you create a visual, that's easy for you and me and everyone to remember. So I just created a very simple visual which says that this is a simple way to define these outcomes for any learning, for any group. So you first begin with what is the business goal. So it could be as simple as increase compliments, reduce complaints. It could be as simple as that. And those are the company, the hard KPIs. Then we look at the people performance and we say, okay, so what are the results that group? So if I'm the waitress or the greeter at the restaurant, greeting someone at the door, what must I achieve? So I need to achieve that, make sure the customer feels welcome. Then the next thing is, what do I need to do? What are the behaviors that you want me to see? And there's very specific behaviors that we need for any job role, for any kind of training and learning. There's always very specific behaviors. But however, what we often do is we begin with the learn. We begin with the content. We begin with knowledge and capabilities instead of actually beginning with the real big picture, which is the goals, the achieve, the do, and then only then do we think about the learn. So we'll show you examples in a minute. And imagine, like I said to you earlier, imagine that we've got the breakthrough goals in the front and right at the top on the right. And then imagine the first achieve, do, learn could be your front line. So this is your waitress, the hostess meeting the customer at the door. The next group would be your supervisor. What do they need to achieve, do, and learn? Then the next group would be your restaurant support function, your operations people, and the people that support like procurement, all the people that support, and then this could be the leadership team right at the back. So if you see in the first blue box, it says, when we define learning in this way, we make it clear for everyone what is their role, what is the outcome of the learning before we even begin creating the learning experience. And then number 2 is when everyone's aligned to this common goal, even just the fact of communicating the role of everyone and the goal of everyone, that already is a form of learning because everyone is already learning and has role clarity. The third thing is when we're able to create the system where people are learning, then we see this third blue box, which says that what we found at Nando's was then because everybody knew each other's role, then the CEO was able to send messages down to her operations team who spoke to the supervisor, who spoke to the front line. The front line were able to send messages and insights about, you know what, customers don't really like this meal, or this meal is too expensive. and they were able to give insights and learning every day back up the chain from the front line, from the customer, all the way up to the CEO. So what you find that when you've clearly defined the people and the purpose, even that in itself already creates some performance improvement where people start talking and connecting more with each other. So here's the worksheet. So imagine if for each group, you look at what are the breakthrough goals. So the overall goal that everyone needs to achieve. So in a restaurant, it would be increase, and customer experience would be increased compliments, reduce complaints. Then for each group, you need to look at what do they need to achieve, what do they need to learn, what do they need to achieve, what do they need to learn, do, and what do they need to learn. Yeah, I think we can send the slides afterwards. We can send you the slides. So this is a very simple worksheet. And in a moment, you're going to see how we use this to create the learning content, the materials and the resources, as well as the activities. So I'm just going to keep going, and then I'm going to stop for questions at the end. So just if you can start thinking about your questions. So here is an example. So I'm using two completely different examples. This example is, imagine Coca-Cola, and I'm just trying to use completely different examples. So imagine Coca-Cola there's millions of women all over the world that are selling Coca-Cola in the streets or in the small little retail shops on the street corners. So they were running 2-day training in the classroom. But it was very difficult for these women because they have families. They couldn't take time off to come to 2 days training. So what we needed to do was, how do we help them run their shops, run their businesses more effectively? So how do we help them to run their own business, sell Coca-Cola, and obviously sell more Coca-Cola, but also at the same time be more successful businesswomen so that they can make more money for themselves, as well as increase the profitability of Coca-Cola. And at the same time, Coca-Cola is helping these women. So what we did was we looked at what do they need to achieve. So if you can see here, to run a business, what do you need to achieve? You need to get started, so even have a plan of what is your business. Get started meaning even make a decision. So looking at what is the business potential, what am I good at? What maybe should I be doing as my small business? So really making a decision to start a business. Then you need to plan it and plan what you're going to do for your business. Then you need to manage, and then you need to grow your business. So this is the achieve and the do for this kind of learning journey. And then let's look in a minute. So if this is what you need to, see if I can move this. So I'm going into one example. So what you need to achieve as an entrepreneur and as a woman in the streets, selling Coca-Cola, and you want to really improve your business, because really what you want to do is make more money for your family. So you want to be able to manage your business more effectively. And Coca-Cola is offering you this learning. One of the things that we saw is that if I just go back one slide, if you look at under manage, and if you look at number 10, one of the behaviors that you need to be able to do to manage your business is to manage your inventory. So if I go back again, so you can see from the content, the materials, we kept it very, very simple. We took manage my inventory, and we explained why it's important, and the fact that if you've got the right inventory, then you'll have the right products for the right customers. And also you can manage your cash flow, and that it really makes a difference to what you sell. So to manage your inventory, these are the things you need to learn. You need to learn how to group inventory, how to create an inventory sheet, how to do a product count, how to order inventory, and how to reduce wastage. So we haven't created any learning experiences. We haven't run any classroom. We have done nothing. All we've done is in the design phase, we focused on who are the people, which are these millions of women all over the world, of many different cultures, many different locations. And the second part is we've defined what is the purpose. And now based on this, now we're going to think about the next layer of detail, which is, okay, what is the kind of learning experience and the content that we need in order to make this purpose come alive? So can you see all this upfront work is the most important, because people will begin with, we want classroom. But in fact, for this solution, we kept very little classroom and we had everything online. So these women could actually learn all this content on their mobiles, and all of them had access to mobile. And if they didn't, Coca-Cola made available access to mobile, the mobile app. And so in fact, the most of the learning happened on mobile, and then they just came in for some group sessions, more for the social kind of learning, and we did a bit of face-to-face. So this is another example. So this is the Nando's one I spoke to you about. So Nando's is a restaurant that's does grilled chicken. And so the breakthrough goals was they wanted to create a very unique, memorable, consistent experience. They wanted to increase compliments and complaints. So that was their breakthrough goal. They had done a lot of training, but the training wasn't helping. So what we did was we clearly defined what do people need to achieve. So they need to manage your service, yourself, and your space. So that's a very simple message to give everyone in the team, whether it's the CEO, to the supervisor, to the waitress, to the hostess. So everyone has to manage the service, yourself, your space. So under each one is what do you need to do? And then here's the example of, so if manage your service, you want to increase your compliments, decrease your complaints. So on arriving, this is what you have to do. So these are very specific behaviors that you must make sure that the guest feels welcomed. On ordering, the guest feels the order is taken promptly, and so on. Then under learn, we broke it down further. And then as you can see, whatever we've got here in writing, we were able to create materials. And in fact, this is a video showing the concrete behaviors. So once we had the people and purpose, we were then able to create the content. Once you've got the content, then we had to think about what is the journey, what is the learning process. So here's another tip for you, is about using all 3 E's. And I'll explain those in a moment. So what we need to recognize, the first thing is that learning has to be a process over time. We never learn by doing something once. It's not an isolated event or one course. What we need to do is map the learning process as a journey and make sure that team has a common purpose. And then our job as designers is to imagine that learning journey, not as a 2-day workshop, but really as a journey over time, and a little bit like an adventure, so that at the end of the day, people are going through the learning. And it could be even your onboarding. Instead of doing it in 2 days intensive, you can do your onboarding with, over, let's say, 3 weeks, where you break it up into different pieces, and you make people feel like on day one, you just focus on a very specific outcome. So what we do is the end-to-end journey. We have a clear path, but it's broken up into stages. And then each stage has a predefined purpose. So for example, within your first week of onboarding, you just want people to make sure they feel welcome, they've understood what the company objectives are, they've got their laptop, they've settled in with HR. So there's a very specific purpose for week 1, which is aligned to their world. It's not just, okay, I'm HR and I need to teach you everything about the company. It's more about who are the people, what's the purpose. So in the first week, people don't need to know everything. They need to just know what they need to know for that week. So that's the whole idea of designing learning as a journey. And then the second key principle is the process would be, how do we make sure that we use the way we learn naturally? So how we learn naturally is through education, by learning something, and that's by being given content, the courses, whatever. Then we learn even better when we actually do it, when we apply the learning, and then we learn better when we share with others. So if we look at, we've just called it You Learn It. So that's education. So you've got from articles, from courses, from videos. Then you, let's say I'm the hostess and I'm practicing the greeting, the welcoming of the customers and seating them at the table. So imagine I'm working at a restaurant and you're training me for this role. Or it could be I'm in a branch, in a bank. So we did this, for example, for DBS. When the customers walk into the branch in a bank, how do we greet them? How do we guide them? And how do we make sure that we create the DBS experience? The same thing with Standard Chartered Bank. It was within a bank environment, the same thing as a restaurant, as a hotel. How do we welcome the guests and make them feel comfortable? So what we did was we gave them courses or articles to read or e-learning or videos, and that was the education, so they learn it. Then most of the time we actually got them to practice it. So we did simulations, we did on-the-job application, we gave them assignments. So we got them to practice it, whether it was in a classroom or in the workplace or on digital. So we could use any of those places to practice. So we make sure that they practice what they've learned. And then we gave them opportunities, whether it's online or in a classroom or in the workplace, we got an opportunity to learn with others. So we had coaches and mentors or manager reviews. So this is making sure that in every journey, you've actually used all three, and you can do this even for every topic. You can take a topic and make sure that they learn it. So let's say it's just greet and guide a customer. So that could be a topic. So you make sure they learn it, that you make sure they practice it, they do it, and then you get them to discuss what are the challenges. So for example, in some countries like Malaysia, some of the staff are out in the rural areas and they're quite shy, and they have a lot of foreign customers sometimes arriving, the tourists, and they know how to greet people. It's just that they're very shy when there's foreigners or tourists. So that's what they practice, was how do you practice to just greet and guide customers that when you're a shy person, and how do you build your confidence? So for example, if you just read or listen to a course or listen to a lecture, that's not going to improve your confidence or your behavior. So that's why this way of designing is quite different. Another principle, the third principle under process, is that there's actually a fourth E, and the fourth E is we can create the education experience exposure, but how do we also create an environment where people feel safe? So for example, if I am doing coaching in the workplace or even in the classroom, how do we make sure that whether it's the classroom or the workplace, that people are feeling safe and that we've created a positive environment? And I think all the trainers know that that's the first thing you do when you start a class. You always begin with setting a good tone and making people feel comfortable. But I think we often forget about that, especially when we do this workplace kind of coaching, that the worst thing you can do is scold people, especially in front of a customer or even in front of their peers. It's really important that we create safe spaces. So this is sorry. Okay, so if I just close off on the process piece, so again, here's a worksheet which says, once you've got your specific group of people and you've got a specific purpose and you've agreed, okay, what they need to learn is how to greet and guide customers when they're arriving. So on arrival, we want all the customers to be greeted and to be guided. So then that's when you think about how do you take each topic and you cover all that content so they learn it. So how do you decide what are the key learning points that you're going to capture. Then what are the activities, which is the second column, that they're going to do, which is going to be applying that learning. And then finally, how you're going to have them maybe reflect and share and discuss between them. Let's say if it's all done, whether it's in the classroom, in the workplace, you can have during a weekly team meetings, you can get the team to give feedback and to say how did they find the learning, what worked, what didn't, and what are the things that they can help each other with even. So this is how you can use the 3 E's to design the learning journey and the learning experience. So I'm just going to stop there just to see, are there any questions? I know I've covered a lot, so are there any comments that anyone can make? If you think this is, does it make sense? Do you find it helpful? Any questions?
So everyone, do you have any question for asking Lori?
Or if you can just put it in the chat.
Yes, just put it in chat box. So we will allow you 2 minutes for asking any question you may have. And if not, Lori, you can continue. No question? Okay.
Okay, I've just got a few more slides. So let me finish, and then what I can do is, okay, let's see, we have an e-learning system, but the staff do not want to use this tool since they said it's boring and unhelpful. Could you please advise? So I think often the challenge is if the learning has been designed, perhaps maybe not really to show the link back to the person's job. So if I just have to give you some e-learning, it could be on a very interesting topic, but if you don't see how it's going to help you in your job, that's number one. So how do you get me to come there? So there's 2 things with e-learning. First, you need me to even get to the e-learning, to even come and open it up. So part of that is how do you design it in the first place? But let's say you have it already. How do you communicate the value? So as you said, as they've said, the 2 things is unhelpful. So they're not going to come if they don't think it's helpful. So how do you communicate the value? Because maybe there is value, but they're just not seeing it. So number 1 is get me there as a learner. So show me why it's going to help me. So that's the most important thing. So it's back to who the people, what's the purpose. So if you can think about the people and the purpose, then send them a clear message on how it's going to actually help them. So that's your number 2. And then your number 1, which is boring, which is you can think about, once you've got me to come, so number 1, I have to understand there's a purpose, there's value. So how do you get me to come? But once I'm in the e-learning, if it is boring, there could be fun ways. Like what we did was we organized pizza parties. I know it sounds crazy, but we had at one client where there was global content that was, there was no choice. They just had to do it. So what they did was each of the offices organized a pizza party, literally, and they ordered a takeaway pizza to the office. and they got everyone around and they did the e-learning together, where they got a whole lot of computers and they actually got them to do the e-learning as a social activity, so that everyone got to complete the e-learning, and at the same time it made it more fun. And once they did the first e-learning like that as a group, they organized that once, twice, but by the third time everyone realized that actually it wasn't that bad, and so in fact the adoption was improved. So I think the key message is you cannot just put e-learning and assume that everyone's going to come. That's never going to happen. You really have to do quite a lot of activities to get them to come, and then of course to get them engaged. So you could even have another way to make it feel less boring is you could do some fun challenges that, like we did with HP, with Hewlett Packard, for their channel partners. We had a competition to see which of the channel partners that sell HP, who finished the e-learning first in each country. So we had Vietnam, we had Cambodia, we had many, many countries. And so within each country, they had a competition to see who completed the e-learning. And there was a prize, and there was, some acknowledgement. And so it was more fun to go and finish the e-learning, because in fact the e-learning was about products, so people didn't really want to do it, but HP needed them to learn about the product. So does that help? Okay, so just any other questions, because I'm just going to close off with the last few points, and then I'm happy to answer any other questions. So I think my big message to all of us on this webinar is, let's just think about, it's like taking people from the old island. So the old way, all of us went to school. Most of us would have been in a classroom where we just keep quiet at school for many, many years, and the teacher talks and we write exams, and all we're trying to do is pass exams. So that's the old way of learning and the old way of thinking about learning. So what happened was, we started creating, in the corporate world, in the business world, or with adults, we started creating something similar to school. We started creating classrooms or e-learning. And again, it wasn't always exciting and fun and engaging. So if you come to the new island, if you cross over to the new island, it's really about thinking differently. So I love the advert from Apple where it talks about the people who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones who do. So I really believe we can change the world of learning, where a lot of people see the training, functional L&D, not everyone, but many of my clients, the biggest challenge they have is that a lot of their training and learning and e-learning is compliance. So it's operations and there's no choice, so people have to do it. And so how do we make learning become the like a positive partner, a real strategic business partner for the business, but also for the learner, where they actually see us as being very valuable to them and to their success in building their capabilities and their careers. So a big opportunity is formally supporting formal, which is the classroom and e-learning, and informal learning. So a very simple thing you could do is find out, how are people learning by themselves without L&D? So for example, at Singapore Airlines, we went around to all the airports and the town offices, and what we found was the people weren't waiting for the L&D classroom training or the e-learning. At this is Singapore Airlines, at the airports, what people would do was, somebody was really good at the check-in counter, so they started coaching any new hires, and they were just informally helping each other by coaching each other. So that's what we did with Singapore Airlines. We actually went around, and okay, it's an airline, so a few of us, we flew to different countries and to interview the staff, and we found out that actually the informal learning was more powerful. They were just informally coaching each other. So what we did was said, okay, if that's happening, let's formally support that. So what we did was we helped them to capture all the coaching that they were doing and to help them to create the coaching materials. So everyone had like a folder. I'm sure you've seen at the airlines, all these girls will keep their own notes about, fraudulent passports or, how to make customers happy. So everyone's normally got like a resource folder. So what we did was we asked the teams if we can, they will share all their resources, and we created an on-the-job coaching a toolkit based on the content from the teams themselves. And what we did was then, which is the last line on the slide, which is then what we did was individuals and teams were learning and improving every day. So in real time, in real life, in real teams. And that was because we collaborated with our audience and we worked together with L&D, with operations, with the leaders, and with the participants. And we created this on-the-job coaching materials, and that went all over the world. And we went to 70 airports and town offices, and we were able to formally support informal learning. And it was a huge success, and everyone was happy because we actually used a lot of the content from the staff themselves. So they were really happy that we had used their knowledge and their insights. Because let's say if you in an airport, whether it's in Phnom Penh or South America, you have a better idea of some of the challenges you have on a day-to-day basis if you actually on the ground. So that's where we involved the staff themselves, and we found that we got really good, valuable learning materials. And then our job was to pull it all together and to create a company-wide on-the-job coaching for Singapore Airlines. So I just want to, I've got 2 more slides. So this is, as I keep saying, that at the moment, everyone's very stressed, everyone's very busy. So in the old island, the minute you come and say, come for 2 days training, I think people get more and more stressed instead of seeing that as a positive thing. Or you have to complete 5 hours of e-learning. So it's more about how do we come over the bridge to the new island, and how do we really make sure that all the learning, even the existing learning we have, as well as the new courses or programs we create, how do we make sure that we have a clear people and purpose? And then what we're going to find is that if we bring learning into the flow of work, so people are learning at the time and the place of need, I think that's a very important, different way of thinking, is learning is at the time and is at the place of need. So when you actually need the learning. So if you're about to meet a client and you need some product knowledge, that's when you need it. So it could be on your iPhone, it could be on a tablet. So how do we bring the learning closer to the learner? Because what we found that when we can align people to that organization purpose, and that's part of the role of L&D, with less effort, we can actually achieve greater results. And I'm just going to do one more slide just to talk about digital. So everything I've just said earlier, imagine if you want to use blended learning, so you can still have your classroom, and then imagine what you need to achieve becomes these tiles. So it becomes the courses or the modules in your mobile learning. Then what you need to do become your lessons. So this could be very behavioral. These are the behaviors in the second iPhone. And then when I click on one of the behaviors, then I can see what do I need to learn. And that's where, from a digital point of view, you can actually create a video. So you've got the content as the video or as PDF or as images, or it could be a link to an existing video. So this is where people can learn it. Then you get them to do something. So you give them instructions to do an activity. And then finally, you get them to share so they can have some chat. So that's just how do you apply this methodology to, in a digital format. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and see, are there any other questions? Or even just comments, or just if you want to share your experiences. Okay, so I understand, because I'm doing this every single day, so I do understand. So what I'm going to try and do is just zoom out. Let me just and just do a summary. So if I just go to the beginning, but feel free to ask any questions still. So if I zoom out and just show you how, as we saw here, these were the 5 P's, but for today, I've just focused on the people, the purpose, and the process. So if we just focused on these 3, as you can see, just in summary, is it just makes a lot of sense. So if you think about yourself, when you've been in a very effective team, you normally find that you've got the right people are working together, there is a clear purpose, and there is a clear process on how you're going to learn, and you're learning more by doing. So anything that I'm saying should just make common sense, because if you look at yourself as a learner and where learning happened more effectively, a lot of anything that I'm saying is really just tapping into that the natural way we learn. So so I just want to encourage you to think of it, think of it more in a logical way, and think of more from yourself as a learner, and where has learning happened most effectively for you, and therefore how can you make that happen in your organization. And you can just begin with very small projects and just try it on a very specific area. And particularly if you can find a business leader that is very open-minded and is open to experiment, those are the kind of people that is good to experiment with. Okay, I'll just stop, and if there are any other questions, yeah, I'll just I'll be available if there's any other questions, or if you want to have a conversation. In the meanwhile, if you can just do the feedback, and I'm still around if you have any questions. Okay, thanks. That's a good question. So I think the examples on how we can create a safe environment, I think what really helps a lot is right at the beginning of a program, or if you have a particular group that you're working with, is right at the beginning. So this number 1, which is in a way create the ground rules. So so just start introducing that as a habit. And that's what I do, even if I go into a huge organization and those people don't report to me. A very simple tool that you can use is just introduce a simple habit that at the beginning of a meeting, or at the beginning of a project, or on a weekly basis, you can just ask the group to agree, how are we going to work and learn together? So let's agree on the team rules. So it could just be 3 things. And you just go around the group and you get everyone to agree and to vote on 3 things that they would like, so that they can feel safe and that it'll be a positive environment for learning and for working, that that will just be more conscious. Because I think sometimes what happens is teams don't realize, or maybe a leader doesn't realize, that they're being negative. So without saying that to the leader or to the person, you could just create a fun activity. It's literally 2 minutes activity in a team meeting or at the beginning of each week or whenever you find is the right time, and do it on a regular basis to say, how do we choose to work and learn together? What should the rules be? For example, like for me, I always begin with myself and I say, like, I really appreciate it when people are respectful. So can we agree that even if we have different views, we can be respectful? And then someone else will say, okay, I like it when everybody is really honest and open, and says what they think. So that's a very simple way to set the rules. And then once you do it with one team, I actually started doing that in DBS in Singapore, in the global office. And after a while, other people started using the same thing, and it really worked pretty well. So that was number one. Another one we've done is, for example, in one of the clients, the leadership, we asked the leadership to go around and give the teams who had created their own learning journeys and that they were improving the customer experience. And the leadership was meant to go around and observe and give them feedback and really encourage them. So we had from the CEO to the top leadership was going around to all the branches and the different teams and doing like a walkabout, going in and meeting up with them. And what started happening was the leadership was scolding everybody and was being very fierce and was like not showing any appreciation for the teams. And the teams had really worked very hard. But if they did 20 good things, they would only notice the one negative. So what we had to do was we created like a cheat sheet for the leaders, and very respectfully, but we said, when you go and meet the teams, can you do 3 things? So we gave them the behaviors. So can you, number 1, you observe. Number 2, give them the positive feedback. Tell them all the good things that you can see. And then number 3, give them 1 thing to improve. So that really helped to shift the energy from the leadership team. So the word Syzygy actually means when the sun, earth, and the moon are aligned, that invisible line is Syzygy. So when 3 things are aligned, the sun, earth, and the moon, then that state of like harmony and of alignment is Syzygy. So actually the word Syzygy means alignment. So I use it to say not the sun, earth, and the moon, but when what you achieve, do, and learn are aligned to your own purpose and to your organization's purpose, then that's Syzygy. So Syzygy means alignment. So the advantages and the disadvantages of using this approach and the benefits is, I'll say the disadvantages first is it does take at the beginning it takes a little bit more time, and it does take more involvement by the different groups. So it takes time, effort, and it does take some thinking. So it does require people to think and to challenge themselves as to what do they really want. Because many times the business leader will come to you and just say, I need a course, or I need my people to have a communication course. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's so many things about communication, like why, what is the purpose? What do they need to achieve, do, and learn? So the disadvantages are the fact that it may take a little bit more time. effort and involvement from everyone at the beginning. However, that is worth it because you're going to save a lot of time and money and effort by doing things properly. So when you really think about your people, purpose, and process very well before you even start creating content and running sessions, you will really save a lot of money in the end, because it'll have greater impact. So I think that's the biggest advantage, is you can impact people's behaviors and their results, and it really has an impact on people's performance and business performance. So that's the big difference about designing learning, which is using this kind of approach that is very focused on who are the people, what is the purpose. Because many times it's quite difficult to come afterwards. Once something's already running, for example, if someone's already running, some e-learning, or they're already running classroom or a program, and they haven't predefined the outcomes, it's very difficult at the end to really measure impact. More and more, all our companies are going to have better data. So more and more L&D is going to have to be far more data-driven and have more data analytics. So that we're going to have to be reporting on and measuring and reporting on impact. We don't always get that pressure, but I think it's going to change, because with all this technology, companies are going to have far more information from the technology and data, and we're going to have to be able to show that what our effort and time and solutions that we provide deliver results. Yeah, so I think that's the main advantage and benefits. Okay, if there are any other questions, I'm more than happy, if through the capacity specialist team, if you've got any more questions, you can send them, and I'm happy to answer them via email, or if you did want to do a call or anything, we're more than happy to discuss more, because it's not complicated, but sometimes it is a slightly different way of thinking about learning.